It feels so great to be a Toa again. I'm gonna go ahead and look up some artwork that some fans made about me, or maybe even some mocks that people had made about me. Okay, let's see. What?
That doesn't look anything like me!
At the start of this year, and actually maybe a little bit before then, I had made the goal of making custom figures that resemble the Toa Hagah, the 4 Toa Hagah that were never officially released as sets, and building them based upon the canonical appearance that had been determined for them in late 2021. These were all contest models that various people had built, and these are the winning results. Now, something that I am going to point out here is that the models that you see right here are based upon not the original images of the models that were made for the contest, but are instead based upon the artwork done by Spectre L. So I just went off of what was shown in Spectre L's image, which there were quite a lot of instances in which there would be some images or some details about each of these characters that was different from the original model. So these are replicas of what is shown in the artwork and not the original contest models. These differences would include some color changes, and sometimes maybe a few part changeouts, particularly for the weapons. Now, I did actually take pictures showing most of the Toa Hagah as they looked before their parts were spray painted, but for whatever reason, I forgot to do that for Koalas, so I do apologize. But real quickly, I will go ahead and go over what parts were painted. Alright, so to sum up for all of them, the feet for all of them happens to be painted. This is also the case for Pooks, even though his feet were actually released in this color, but I unfortunately was not able to find 2 of them at a decent price, let alone find 2 at all. Because at the time that I was working on getting the parts that I needed for building these, there was only 1 pearl dark gray foot piece available on Bricklink, and it costed about $5 to $7, which is quite a lot. And I guess it's understandable considering that it was only ever released with the Maximus set. So I had to go ahead and spray paint some feet for Pooks in order to get it. And another thing that is painted for all of them would be the kneecap pieces, the shoulder armor pieces, the torso pieces except on Pooks, as well as for the staff pieces, except for Pooks once again, because I did not need to spray paint Pooks' weapon piece as it was already in the color that I needed it to be in. And even though Pooks' shoulder armor pieces were released in gunmetal, the ones that I got didn't quite match one another. I mean, there was one that matched perfectly with the gunmetal color that I was going off of, but there was one that was just slightly a bit lighter, so I ended up spray painting them both in that spray paint color in order to get them to match. And another part that was spray painted for all of them would be the shield pieces for all of them originally being in gold. And for the case of Ga'aki and Bumanga, I spray painted their Roduka spinners, although Pooks and Koalas' Roduka spinners, at least the ones that are actually used to spin are not spray painted, because those were released in brown and whites respectively. Now, there is also another Ruduka spinner that is in the weapon piece. However, I did not want to risk putting those in and taking them out to risk chipping off some paints. So I ended up gluing them in there. They are mostly already broken parts anyway. It is hard to tell because the broken part is on the inside part of the shield, so it's very hard to tell on camera that they were partially broken. So they are glued in, they are not going to be coming out, so that's pretty much just for a display purpose anyway. But the colored Ruduka spinners are able to be used. And another thing that I would like to point out is that I did try to take the printing off of the Ruduka spinners being used for Koalas and Pooks, since with the official Toa Hagah, there is no code on the side of the colored Ruduka spinners. But unfortunately, I was not able to do it. I've just been trying to erase it for quite a while, and I barely was able to get any off at all. So I decided, not a big deal. Not gonna bother with it. And plus, it's usually very hard to tell on camera anyway. So with that all out of the way, let's get to it. As I've said, I don't have a picture showing Koalas with his parts before they were spray painted because I simply forgot to take that picture. Or I took it, but it got lost. If I ever find it, maybe I will post it up somewhere, but I'm quite convinced that I never took it at all, which is quite unfortunate. Now, the way that Koalas is built is that, well, all of the Toa Hagah, or at least most of them, there is one exception, although it's not Koalas, obviously, they all use the Toa Metru leg pieces for their lower arms. And in Koalas' case, he also uses those same pieces for his legs, pretty much making him the Gali Nuva of the Toa Hagah, in that he uses the same pieces for his arms as he does his legs. Though, of course, in Gali Nuva's case, she had arms that used the same pieces as what's normally used for the legs, but in Koalas' case, he uses the pieces for his legs that is normally the case for his lower arms. Another thing that was added on to Koalas would, of course, be that piece on his mid-torso. That little extra piece that goes on the middle peg on his torso, like a little lower than the Toa Nuva armor piece. And I also happen to really like the scarf that wraps around his face, although what exactly happened to it when he was turned into a Rahaga, I'm not entirely sure. And here you can see exactly how the Toa Nuva armor piece attaches on, and Koalas also has the chest piece that is used to cover up the gears be painted as well, although this isn't the case for all of them, but it is the case for Koalas. And the shoulder armor pieces, in case you don't recognize what those are from the Knight's Kingdom sets. They were originally in silver, since I forgot to take a picture, just letting you know what color they were before I spray painted them. And I don't know what set specifically those came in, but I believe that they were in silver before, and the sword piece was in blue before. And again, I don't know what Knight's Kingdom set they came in because I don't know my Knight's Kingdom lore, as I got these parts off of Bricklink. And as for the design of the mask, I find it to be very impressive. I believe that this was first shown in a comic for the island of Voyanui, and somebody had thought, well, this should be Toa Koalas' mask. And so they used it for this mock, and it was entered into the contest, and it was officially accepted as being canon. So, not really anything else to say about Koalas. There you go. Now let's move on. Moving down the road, we have Toa Hagah, and this time around, I do have an image of what she looked like before the parts were spray painted, although I did switch out the Reduca spinners since all of them initially were going to have the partially silver and partially colored Reduca spinners, and I say partially colored because it's the color of the Toa Hagah's own color, but I resorted to taking some spray painted ones, although the one that you see in the picture that shows the parts before they were spray painted is not the same one that I used to spray paint. The one that I used to spray paint was mostly silver before. And now here is what Ga'aki looks like with all of her parts that needed to be spray painted being spray painted. And I gotta say, she looks very good like this. Now, as it just so happens, is that the Wikipedia for Bionicle says that her secondary color is a copper color, although the spray paint that I used here is called rose gold, which I think is close enough. It's not the exact same gold as what was used for the official Iruni. In fact, it looks nothing like any gold that was used for any gold-colored sets in either Bionicle or even Hero Factory. The shoulder armor pieces use the same ones that were used for Kalma in the Baraki series, and then the headpiece, I believe the head was based upon a bootleg Bionicle mask. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm pretty sure that that is what was used. And the Galok shield piece, that's a pretty nice addition, very fitting since she is a Toa of Water. The end of the staff piece you probably recognize from Prydak in the Baraki series that was released in 2007. And for the legs, I find it interesting how she uses the leg pieces from the Paraka, even though they would not come out until the following year, since the Toa Hagah made their debut in 2005, while the Paraka would not come out until 2006. But the Paraka leg pieces are what are canonically used for Ga'aki. And that's about all I have to say about this one. So, gonna go ahead and move on to the next. Here we are with Toa Hagah Pooks. This is what he looked like before the parts were spray painted. And I'm not sure if you can tell on the picture, but one piece of his shoulder armor is a brighter silvery color than the other one. But of course, when I spray paint them, they are just right. And as I said before, I didn't use that same Reduca spinner that's shown in the picture. I switched it out with one that was completely brown for the finalized version. And here it is, the finalized version of Pooks. And I'm going to say that there had to be a bit of substitutions they had to do for this one. Like, for starters, the official model, or rather the model that was made for the contest, used the bone pieces, the upper leg and arm bone pieces. The ones that you see on the model right here are in the dark tan color, but they should be in the Metru brown color. And I will go ahead and explain as to why I didn't do that. The reason for that is because on Bricklink, the pieces in the Metru brown color are either very expensive or there aren't enough of them in the United States to go by. So I went ahead with a cheaper option and used the dark tan ones from Avac instead. And I also used one of those Technic connection points for his neck as well to add in a bit more of the dark tan color. And another thing to also point out is that Pooks uses the light blue colored eyes, which alone costed $7. I am not kidding. They really costed that much. I suppose it makes sense though, because they were only ever released in one set, Toa Nuju, and they were never released in that color in any set after that. So pretty much Toa Nuju is the only set where you're going to get those eye pieces from. Quite unfortunate. And of course, the shoulder armor pieces come from the Knight's Kingdom set. Again, I don't know what series of sets from Knight's Kingdom those pieces were used on. For the torso, he uses the Palma foot piece in the gunmetal color, and his staff piece is one of those staff pieces that was introduced in Hero Factory. I believe they were used in the Brain Attack series. So this is a Bionicle figure that uses a part that originated from Hero Factory, which aligns with Generation 1 rather than in Generation 2, in which all of the sets use the same build system as the Hero Factory sets. Right, so that's all I have to say in regards to Pooks. Oh, well, one more thing. The leg pieces are the Vaki leg pieces right here. He and Norik are the only two Toa Hagah to have, well, not unique pieces. Like, they are the only Toa Hagah to use shared pieces for their legs, with both of them using Vaki leg pieces, while every other Toa in this series uses lower leg pieces that aren't shared by any of the other characters. So, Norik and Pooks are the only ones who do not have unique lower legs. Right, moving on. And now we get on to probably the most expensive out of all of the Toa Hagah models that I had made. And I will go ahead and explain to you why this was the most expensive to make. Of course, you see here, this is how the model looked before spray painting the parts. And once again, I didn't use that same Ruduka spinner as you see in the picture. The one that I used to spray paint black was one that was completely silver before. And here is what Bumanga looks like in his finished form. And man, is he a massive one. And also a very tricky one to pose, as well as to stand up, since it is not very easy given the way that he is built. Now, something to point out is that on the model that was used for the contest, the Ruduka spinner shield did not have a Ruduka spinner on it. It was just attached to his arm. I, however, put the Ruduka spinner in and managed to attach it in a way in which it can attach to his arm, in the same way as it could if it was just the shield piece. So, there you have that. And now to tell you as to why this was the most expensive set for me, well, not set, but the most expensive model for me to make. And it was all because this guy uses 5 black Toa Metru torso pieces, which unfortunately are very hard to come by on Bricklink, unfortunately. Like, when I searched there were barely any black torso pieces, or at least enough to make this model. Like, this model needed 5 of them, but I was not able to find that many of them that were available in US stores. I was able to get 1 from eBay, but that was about it. I only got 1 for the main torso piece. The 4 that are used for his arms and legs, those were all printed from Shapeways. And yes, I am aware that the black main torso piece was a legitimate color for that part, but I was not able to find enough of them. So, if you notice that there are some parts that don't fit on all the way, it is simply because these pieces that I got from Shapeways are not perfect when it comes to how the parts attach, but it was the best that I could do, given how limited getting the genuine torso pieces were. And here I am showing you how the pieces happen to attach. As you can see, I used one of those small Technic pieces, whatever it's supposed to be called, I really don't know, to pretty much hold the Toa Metru chest pieces onto there, so it is not all that gappy, like you don't see the inside of his arm at all. And as for the way the fingers are attached, I used a couple of those more recent Technic pieces that use the 1 length axle connection point and 2 length pin connection point. And I did that for both of his hands, as well as using the lift arm pieces that were first introduced with the Toa Hagah being used for their inner heads. And the way that I got the arms and legs on, the way that the arms are attached are the same pieces. They use the same pieces as what was used for most of the Blatorian sets in getting their heads connected to their torso pieces. The legs, on the other hand, use the black voodoo balls that have the axle hole going all the way through, the pieces that were first introduced with the Toa Hagah. And here I am showing you how I managed to construct the foot onto there. I will say it's not the most stable way that the foot fits, but this is the best that I could do. So, there you have it. Certainly a very expensive and kind of a top-heavy model, but I think that it was worth it in the end. Although I think that it's more of a display model rather than an actual play model. But display was pretty much what I was going for these models. And real quickly, here is how the head is attached on. Bumanga pretty much takes the treatment of being hunchback, similar to Onua. And because of the limitation of his back, or the movement of his head, I used one of the shorter eye stalk pieces that was introduced in 2007 for Bumanga, so he has plenty of neck room, because with the eye stalk pieces that were introduced in 2004, it would restrict movability. And for his upper back, this is how I was able to get the pieces in, as you can see here. So, I think that is about all I have to say about this character. And now, here is the picture that Spectre L had drawn, and I was able to arrange all of the Toa Hagah figures, the 2 official sets and the 4 custom figures, and I was able to pose them in nearly the same way as what was shown in Spectre L's artwork. So here they all are, the entire team. And now to give my closing thoughts about this team as a whole in general. Not just the custom figures, but them as a Toa team in general, and how they are very different from any of the other Toa teams that we have gotten. How they are different from the Toa Mata, how they're different from the Toa Nuva, the Toa Metru, the Toa Hagah, the Toa Hagah, and the Toa Mari. Alright, well, since the 2 that we did get were released in 2005, they pretty much all carry over the same build as the Toa Metru, since this was before the Bionicle build had even been implemented, since Bionicle had been evolving over the years. Like, it had been changing constantly with how these sets are built up. And the way the Toa Hagah are built is very unique among any of the Toa that we have gotten before and even after. As for their color schemes, I do find it impressive how they use one metallic color as a secondary color, or maybe even a primary color, to their supposed secondary color. And given as to how these were characters that tie into the flashback years, 2004 and 2005, they use the same shades of colors that the Toa Metru, as well as most of the other sets that were released in 2004 and 2005, and somewhat in 2006 and 2007, as well as in 2008. They do look pretty good. The way that they have the armor arranged is a bit different, such as how they have unique shoulder pieces, and unique torso pieces, and unique leg pieces, and all of that stuff, and unique stabs at the end of their spears. It just kind of seems as though LEGO was just selecting random weapon pieces when making the official ones. Now, of course, the official ones, Norik and Iruni, they were based upon or recycled from two canceled sets, Toa Duma and Toa Nadiki, and you can see the similarities between them. But for the rest of the characters, they were not based upon any other supposed characters that we could have gotten, since we never got them officially released as sets, because for the longest time, we did not have a canonical version of how they looked. And speaking of which, over the years, fans had built their own interpretations of how the Toa Hagah should look like. I've done that myself. I've made my own interpretations of how I think the Toa Hagah could have looked. I've taken them apart quite a long time ago, since I didn't see any point in having them. And for some time, Norik and Iruni were the only two that I actually did have. Up until the canon contest to determine the canonical appearance of the Toa Hagah, I did not have the other Toa Hagah, since I did not have any idea of how they should look. And we happened to have quite a lot of other characters that we did not initially have a canonical appearance of what they were supposed to look like. Did we eventually get them, though? For some, yes. For others, no. And is there a chance that we may ever be able to see the remaining characters? I am not certain at this time, because I think that the canonicity contest stuff that's going on, the contest to determine canonicity into appearances, I don't think that they are doing that anymore. Maybe I'm wrong, but from what I've heard, they're done with that. So it's quite unfortunate. I really would like to see what they could determine Toa Duma's canonical appearance could be, or Toa Nadiki's canonical appearance could be. And sure, there have been some people that have made mocks based upon them, but they are non-canon, unfortunately. So, I think that the Toa Hagah was a very unique team as far as the story goes, and their roles in Web of Shadows when they were taken on the forms of the Rahaga. And it was certainly quite surprising to find out that they were actually just Toa humor mutated. They were not like Batoran. They were similar to the Turaga, but they were actually Toa, just mutated to be shorter and had Rakshi heads. And it turns out that the name Rahaga was not short for Rahi Turaga. It was short for Rakshi Hagah, which makes more sense than the former, in my opinion. So, at the end of the day, I think that they all turned out pretty good. It was a shame that we only got 2 of them officially released as sets. It was also a shame that we waited over 15 years to find out what these characters canonically looked like. But now we do. We know what they canonically looked like. I am very satisfied that we do. And they will be models that I will treasure for probably a very long time within my Bionicle collection. So that is about all I have to say about this one. I've been voice recording for about 30 minutes now, and I'm already starting to feel a bit tired, and I will certainly be needing to do some editing, considering that there have been very long pauses in some cases, so the recording may be a bit shorter by the time I finish with that. So, thank you all very much for watching. If you are interested in trying to build these Toa Hagah yourselves, I may provide links to the masks so that you can print them off of Shapeways. And I may also provide a link to the Toa Metru black torso piece for anyone who is trying to get enough of the black main torso pieces but are not having any luck in finding them. Although, if you are able to find some genuine black Toa Metru body pieces to use for your Toa Bumanga, like if there are plenty more of them available by the time you're watching this, go ahead and get those, and get them while you can before they run out again. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again in my next video.